So this is kind of the idea behind spaced repetition software. When we learn something, directly after learning it, our memory is going to be 100%. So if this is memory, and this is time, straight after learning we're going to have 100% recall. But very quickly, depending on the thing, especially if it's a foreign sound or something like a foreign word, that memory is going to degrade until it kind of peters out at around, like, some rough idea of the starting letter or the rough sound or something like that, or roughly how it was written. But what we want to do when we're learning a language is to actually be able to retain above a certain kind of memory threshold or a certain recall threshold. Call this the threshold. We want to maintain our memory above that point so that we can bring that word or that phrase or that term back and use it in language. So what we want, the question is, when would the lazy man study? When would he try to recall? When would he remind himself by looking at his notes of what the word is or how to pronounce it? And the answer is just before you pass that threshold. Because if you study before you've passed the threshold, like way before, you're wasting your time. You could have waited for this period of time. And if you memorize after, you've already forgotten. You've passed the threshold and you have to learn it all over again, which is a lot harder. So the lazy man will pick this point and you'll remind yourself, and then because you've been reminded twice, it'll take you a bit longer to forget. But then again, the lazy man or the lazy woman will remind themselves just then. And so the goal of spaced repetition software is to determine exactly when this lazy man revision point is and help you revise at that point. So over time, the memory gets stronger and stronger until the point where, you remain above that critical memory threshold for really long periods of time. So this is the idea behind SRS. I'll just let you know that this forgetting curve, it comes from a bloke called Hermann Ebbinghaus, and he came up with the idea in 1885. So we're dealing with spaced repetition, and we want to, because we're spacing in time our repetition as efficiently as possible, and the best way to do it is with spaced repetition software. One of those softwares is Anki, Powerful Intelligent Flashcards. So let's have a look at Anki. Just Google Anki, it's this one, and then you can download it. And this is something what it's going to look like. So let's go into one of my decks. This is my spoken Mandarin deck, and I've finished my studies for today. So what I can do is I can review ahead, or I'll review ahead one day. So what Anki does is it poses a question to me, and this is here twice because I didn't have the characters for this particular expression. But I have to try and remember, what the answer to this, or what the phrase in English is. And luckily, for the purpose of this video, I can remember that this means I'm left-handed. And so now Anki helps me to determine when that critical, when that lazy man recall or lazy man test period is. Either I got it wrong and I need to see it again today. I found it quite hard, and this is a card I've had for a long time. So for other cards you'll see different times here, but for this card, the hard option will bring it back in 24 days. The good option, if I say, well, I did quite a good job, will bring it back in 1.9 months. And the easy option, I'll say, yeah, no worries, we'll bring it back in 3.2 months. I think I did pretty good. I didn't immediately recognize it, but it was pretty quick. August 20th. Now, can I remember how to say this? Again, yeah, I kind of remembered that, so I can kind of rate myself. But was it that good? Was it that easy? Well, in this case, it is quite easy because this just means 8 month, 20 day, or 20 number. So I can work out that relatively easy. So that is good. And you can see I've had this card around for longer, and I've got it right more times than the previous card, which is why it gives me this option. The options are so far in the future. Again, another card. And you can see that Anki is a really efficient method. We can browse and we can look through my different. So these are all my. You don't only have to use them for vocab as well. I've actually used them for studying different topics at university. So this is stuff from. This is from. I call this my card graveyard, or where my previously used decks go. But if I go to my field botany course, for example, field botany day 1, this was a crash course that I did over summer, I can have a look at the cards that I set up. So I set it up with a question. You can tell Eucalyptus nitida apart from Eucalyptus amygdalina as, and the answer is nitida has decorticating bark from around halfway up, plus an extra bit of information. And so you can see all these key bits of information I just had, and instead of just reading over and over my notes and not taking it in, or reading it too much and wasting my time, all I had to do was make these cards, look at them, finish my study for the day, and I knew that in my head the information was clear enough for me to be able to recall on it and bring it back in a test situation. And I've actually found that my recall since using this of previous topics is a lot better. So that's pretty much Anki. I'll just give you a quick look at how to add cards. So you can have different types of cards, which will have different, different fields, different numbers of fields, and then I can choose where I want to put this card, and I can have new cards or anything like that. So it's super easy. You can just manage your fields like this, adding or deleting fields, and then you can even decide which cards you want. So for this field, I've got one card which has the meaning on the front, and the character, the pinyin, the romanization English of the Mandarin word, and the memory cue on the back. And then for the other way around, I've got the character, essentially the Mandarin first and the English second. So I've decided to have it both ways. And then I could add another card which has just the character on the front, and I could be spending time learning the characters. But I do that in a different deck. So essentially that's Anki. Really, really efficient way to learn content, words, or anything else for that matter.